behavior as opposed to what societies do on a whole. That's that contrast between sociology and psychology. Okay? So, and the thing that we don't want to do, well, this is like pressure.
I know.
No, just put it on the table.
So the important distinction, though, is that what we want to talk about in psychology normally is what most people do, not what like people who are different from everybody else does. Okay, so because when we're talking about uniqueness, we're talking about personality. Usually that's like the study of personality. Almost every other discipline in psychology is what most people do as human beings. So now I'm interested to know what you guys have observed that you think most people in Peru do that we don't do in the US, or something that is contrasting.
Just come up to people and buy this, buy this, buy this. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Now, do we not do that? Can you think of any other?
I feel like it's not all the time.
No, I think we are like in the just on the streets like that.
Okay. Have you never seen that in the US in any context?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
Where?
Like with, I guess, people trying to have you sign up for a movement or something like that.
Oh,
like
yeah.
right?
So, yeah.
Like if you go to Bass Pro Shop or something and you walk by,
Like at certain places,
Certain
like a
places.
mall.
Okay. But there is a kind of a difference that you're observing.
Even we don't do it on the streets like they do, trying to sell stuff all the time. Because
Okay.
Like the people that were selling the paintings like followed you around and made sure.
So that persistence is
But
something
that's
kind of
how they
unique.
make a living, and we actually have jobs and everything.
They get salaries. We get salaries for it.
Right, and they
Okay.
sell the stuff they make to make a living.
Okay. So is that a cultural thing or is it an economic thing? Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well,
Interesting. What else have you observed?
it's fine.
What? The honky communicating with each other.
I do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
no,
but-
I do.
But do you think
Well,
it might be a little bit different here than it is in the U.S.? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
In what way?
We have more than 2 lanes.
Also said that was more for like communication, and for them it's like, hey, yeah, there's a mirror, like let me in.
Because they don't have stop signs.
And then I feel like in the US it's just kind of like, get out of my way, like I'm never.
It's pretty angry.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem? It's always like,
They
you're
literally
not
just
like,
keep
you're
Well,
not like,
ours is anger.
I'm here.
Like you really need that confidence that you're not going to get hit if you cross the street. Like you,
Oh, yeah.
like if you look at the car, then it might keep going.
Oh, it'll keep going.
And they're much more comfortable
Remember
with
that
their
lady?
cars getting
I
very
saw
close
it.
to each other.
Yeah.
Stopped a couple times.
We saw a lady.
Stop signs and stuff, but I've never seen that. Like as they're moving, like even like 5 miles per hour, they're like this close, and I'm like.
What else have you observed that's
They don't smile.
They don't smile. Okay.
Or they don't smile
Very
with
somber.
teeth.
Well, they don't really smile with their mouth, just their mouth.
Even in like pictures, I've noticed, it's like they'll sit there with like the girls with the llamas, they just sit there holding the llama.
Yeah.
Because when you pass someone on the street, you smile, and then here it's like,
But one thing they
Do
do,
anything.
I almost feel weird when I smile.
one thing that they do is a different way. It's just like America. They really put the lamb in your hand, or put the item in your hand, and then ask you for the money.
Yes.
But it's the same thing with like America do with like, I guess, people signing house contracts or giving a credit card or stuff
Oh,
like
yes.
that. It's like it's something else behind it.
Yeah.
It's like it's not known.
Yeah, they had it a couple times.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a business strategy.
Yeah.
It is.
Get you engaged in it and then charge you.
They understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then now you're in debt.
And they understand that Americans really like
animal.
Okay, so I have a question for you about the smiling. Is that a cultural difference between the U.S. in its entirety and Peru?
I don't know because I haven't seen the US.
Yes.
I haven't seen the entire US.
No, I think
That's a
I would
major
just like to
US thing.
say it's a lot different like Fulton County. I walk down the street, I smile, I wave at everyone. I went to Chicago, I smiled at a man and he gave me the weirdest look ever and kept walking. That's true.
I think it depends what part of the U.S. you're in.
I think it's only if you're in a smaller community. Because like coming from the suburbs, which is not even close to Chicago, never. Or like people holding doors. Like when I came to Monmouth, that's the first thing I realized, that if you're like this far from the door, they're gonna wait and hold it for you. Like that'll never happen.
If Chicago, if you're this far from the door,
They'll still close it. They'll still close it in your face.
So I think like in the small villages and like the small villages we went to, it's a lot more friendly people because their community is built off of
Supporting each other.
right, supporting each other.
So that's actually kind of similar to the U.S., where you get in smaller communities and people are friendly, and then you get into the bigger cities and people are not. When I lived in New York, I moved from Tucson, Arizona. The first time I ever moved away from home was to New York, and lived there for a year or so. When I went back to visit my family, I'll never forget going through the grocery store, and my mom sent me to the store, and so I got the basket, and I'm going through, and some woman in the grocery store kind of looks at me and goes, I'm like, what? You know, I was like, what are you staring at me about? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've become like New York, because it didn't ever used to be that way, wondering what somebody wanted because they smiled. When we moved to Galesburg, though, that is a whole other level of friendly, because we bought a house and we're driving through the neighborhood, and we're driving through the neighborhood, people are waving at our car. And I look at my husband like, you know them? He's like, I don't know them. You know them? I don't know them. Why are they waving at us? Is there something wrong with the car? You know? And it took us a while to figure out that that's like.
That's just how they are. And I think there's a difference between Monmouth and Pittsburgh. There is.
Okay, and what would the difference